Hi there, I'm Garth, and I've got a few tips about learning Hebrew. When you go to school, you learn the alphabet, right? And you think that language is all about the alphabet, but that's not true. Most people have been learning their language for about 5 years before they go to school and learn the alphabet. They learn by speaking it. But now you're adults, you already know about how to use an alphabet. You can learn the alphabet along the way. Language is a spoken thing first and then a written thing, and that's how it's developed as well. I caution against analyzing a word into its letters and saying, oh, look, because these letters have a certain meaning, therefore the word means this. That's a recently developed nonsense. The history of Hebrew is that it was written in various ways, not always with an alphabet. I'm talking about the early Semitic languages. The Semitic languages didn't come about because of an alphabet. People were already speaking those words before an alphabet was developed to write them. And there were other ways of writing those words, probably even before there was an alphabet. So do not think that the language came with an alphabet or with the alphabet that is now used. It's also not a godly alphabet that is being used by Hebrew. It is the Phoenician alphabet with the right number of consonants for the Phoenician language, not the Hebrew language. Hebrew language had more consonants than 22. Put aside those ideas that you can get the meaning of a word from the meaning of its letters. That's not correct. That could cause you to misunderstand words, and also to get some kind of mystical idea that Hebrew is a language different from every other language. Well, not in this sense. No, it's a spoken language, and then a written form was developed to write down what was already being spoken. So, analyzing according to the letters meanings, that can be a good memory device to help you remember how to spell a word or how to say a word. And that's all cool for a memory device, but don't be deceived into thinking that that is how Hebrew actually came about. Right, as I said, it's natural to learn spoken language before writing, but that's hard when few are actually speaking biblical Hebrew, as in trying to pronounce it authentically as it was pronounced back in the time that it was written. There are many modern ways of pronouncing Hebrew. They're not the same. Well, you could learn a modern way if you want, but if your heart is for the faith once delivered to the saints, I suppose you'd want to know how they were speaking it too. I suggest, because you're an adult, you already know how to write things, so always be connecting new things to what you've already become familiar with. I suggest that First Chronicles 1 is a good place to start. You can listen to me pronouncing the names in my recording, names you already recognize, and you can learn to say them in biblical Hebrew and thus at the same time learn how to write them, which is also shown on the screen. And I'll give a link in the description to my recording of First Chronicles chapter 1. And when you have a question or a desire to learn anything, jump to that. Jump straight to that, because your mind is getting ready to connect that new thing to what you already know. And so here's a principle. It's not always convenient at school because you get things lectured to you and you don't really get to choose what you want to learn next. But when you're teaching yourself, it's better to go with what you're wanting to know, what your question is. Your brain is getting ready to connect that information. You're asking about it because there's already significant connections inside your brain related to that, and it just needs that answer, and it's going to grab onto it and it's going to connect to it in many ways, and you're going to build up your understanding like that. So that's why tutoring is a better option than sitting in a lecture hall. A final thought, I recommend picking a pronunciation system where each letter and each vowel is pronounced distinctly, differently, so that when you hear it in your mind, you know how to write it. This is quite unique because with time, letter sounds merge and languages are simplified, and so most pronunciation systems will have the same sound represented by multiple different letters or multiple different vowel points, which makes it confusing when you're trying to write down what you're hearing in your head. So Pick a pronunciation system that has a distinct sound for each letter and for each vowel. That's the tip. Peace.